Hello and welcome to another episode of the eReads podcast. I am your host, Liz, and on my podcast, I talk about authorship, books, and all the different parts of the creative process. Now, today we are talking about something that I struggle with. We're talking about outlining. And while I was terrified of this process before, Jeff provides some tips and strategies that really help to make the process less scary. So even though I'm still a work in progress and I struggle to outline, there are a lot of beneficial tips in this episode. So now that you know a little bit about what we're talking about, let's jump right on in. Welcome, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Anytime. I am really excited the word technical comes to mind, kind of the technical parts of writing. And before we get into the technical, I have a question which I like to call is the bookish question. There's something about books, something light to welcome you to the show. So you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. The question I have for you is, have you ever bought a book just because of the cover? Like you saw the cover and you knew you had to have it?
Oh my God, all the time. And as a writer, I wish that wasn't the case because I do not design my own covers. But yes, it's so important.
Okay, what draws you to the cover? Like when you think of the book, like you pick it up just because of the cover, what drew you?
Pops of color are big. For me, it's I think more like design elements other than just pictures. It feels like, a lot of book covers these days. I think the kind of the wisdom on the street is, if you're writing a thriller, your cover should look like other thrillers and all that. And for me, and maybe I'm weird, but I like to look for books that stand out. And maybe it's not that I like to look for them, it's just I'm drawn to them. So pops of color, if the rest of the books in the aisle are images, if something is a drawing or some other kind of design, that usually brings me into.
Absolutely agree. Because when I go into the bookstore, I'm like a kid in the candy store. So then I'm just like, I don't know what to look at. And then when there's this one thing that stands out, it really helps to center me.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like your cover is like a billboard, right? Someone's passing your billboard on the highway and they have like maybe 3 seconds. So that's at least what I try to do with mine.
Absolutely. And please share about your books, right? So what genre, what are they about?
I'm a thriller author. I hope you wouldn't know it if you knew me, but I write very dark and twisted novels. I've written 2, working on a third. The first one is called A Killer Secret, and it's a psychological thriller. And I started with kind of this basis of are there any secrets that you might have that you would kill to keep? And I thought about, the fact that we all have secrets, right? Some are mundane, some are deeper, but what if somebody had something that was so horrifying and consumed them so much that they would be willing to kill to keep that secret? And so that's
so good.
Yeah, that's where that story came from, and it's a very intimate kind of slow
slow burn.
It's kind of a slow burn story, and it's just about 3 people. It's a very small cast, and 2 of them are psychologists, and one, she's a younger kind of female psychologist, and she's wondering if she's even helping anybody at all. And, one day, while she's kind of having this crisis of conscience, one of her patients, a new male patient, opens up to her and says that he is a serial killer and he's actively
my goodness,
pursuing his next victim. And so that's kind of what that's the kind of the hook into that story.
Oh, it's a big hook. And what's the name of that one again?
That is A Killer Secret.
Oh my goodness. I know people are already like, let me.
And, I left that open for a sequel, which is what I'm working on now.
Cool.
My second novel, I wanted to do, as an author, I want to try to stretch myself. And so, like I said, that first one was very intimate, and it was written from three people's points of view, it hops back and forth. And my next novel it is a domestic thriller, and it's a little faster paced. And for that one, I wanted to dive into the idea of destiny and faith, not necessarily like in a deep religious sense, but just the kind of things that we all encounter every day. And so the idea there is that lust kills, and it's a very gritty novel. It's about lust, love, faith. It's about the consequences of doing whatever it takes to survive. And the question I asked there, I always try to ask a question of myself before I start writing, is how far would you go to regain your faith in something bigger than yourself? And
so good.
It's a story about a trucker. He breaks down in a small town. He falls in lust with the wrong kind of girl, and just gets deeper and deeper into the darkness of this small town.
Oh, that's so good. And speaking of your stories, do you outline? Do you pants? What does that look like?
I tried to be a pantser because it just felt easier. And oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. I am a big outliner.
You know what? I enjoy that, because from the other side as a pantser, that's how I feel about outlining. I want to so bad. People that outline look so happy, like they know where the story is going, and I try, and it's just like I can't. So please walk me through outlining and what that looks like for you.
Sure. I'm a student of life. I love to learn about everything. So when I really wanted to pull the trigger and fulfill my dream of being an author, I looked at all kinds of books, on how to write it. And I'm a writer by trade. I'm in advertising and marketing, but I write like 30-second TV spots or brochures. So it's totally different than a 100,000-word story. And so I needed some help, and it felt really daunting to me. And like I said, I tried pantsing and it didn't work. But I stumbled upon this author. His name is Randy Ingermanson, and he created the snowflake
method, or what? Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I use. I don't follow it like to the letter anymore. I think I did on my first book just because I was new to it, but I loved the idea. He says start with a single sentence, right? And so for A Killer Secret, my sentence that I started with was: a psychologist wrestling with her own demons learns that one of her patients is a serial killer who's already stalking his next victim.
So strong.
Yeah, and so that excited me, and I thought, okay, cool. There's an idea there. And then you take that sentence and you turn it into a paragraph. You take the paragraph, you turn it into a page, and eventually you have a 3 to 5 page, not necessarily outline, but kind of you're right. It's almost a book report of a book that doesn't exist yet.
That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah, and it tells the secrets, and it's not something that you want your readers to see, but for me, it's kind of like the roadmap, and that allows me personally to what I love is when you're reading a book and you don't realize that there's Easter eggs in it until the end, and then you start. So that allows me to figure out, okay, how much should I give away? Where should I drop some Easter eggs? And then after I've got that, I spend a lot of time getting to know my characters. I create character sheets. Sometimes I'll put photos if I think ooh, this actor or somebody is who I picture when I'm writing. Not necessarily that you need to picture the same person, but that allows me to have something to look at while I'm describing, so I'm not describing something out of thin air all the time. It allows me to, I dive into their background, what's their reason for being in the story? Do they have any secrets? I'm big on secrets in my stories. how might they change? How do I want them to change from the beginning story to the end? And how will they affect the protagonist and all that stuff? And I'll be honest, I maybe use half of it, but by doing it,
good to have though.
yeah, but by doing it, it helps me kind of get into their heads. And so when
Absolutely.
I'm writing, I feel like it's not as hard to shift from one character to the other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then I take that 3 to 5 page write up and I use it to break down um, books into scenes. And so I just write one scene at a time, and I can, because I have it outlined, I can skip around. If today I want to talk about something at the end, I'll write the end. If I want to talk about something in the middle, I'll write something in the middle. And it allows me to like keep notes in each scene or each chapter too. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I want to talk about here. And it still gives me the flexibility of writing and figuring things out as I go. It just gives me a starting and an ending point, and that middle part is where I can be the most creative. And I'll be honest, my characters change things as I get into it, because you're in the flow and you're like, oh no, my character. That as I get to know this character, they wouldn't do what I thought they would do in the beginning. They're going to do this, so it does change, and it's not a step by step. And I know some pantsers out there are probably thinking, oh my God, that sounds boring. You're just writing a bunch of paragraphs and you're not being creative. But it just gives me that foundation and the comfort that I need psychologically to know I have an end point. And if I get to that end point, it doesn't really matter if I follow everything directly.
Absolutely. Like as you're talking, it sounds like you have a little bit of that pantser soul because you have this outline, but you allow yourself to have that flexibility. Like I know some people, like their outline is the outline. Their characters get no say, but you have this flow to it. And I think that makes it fun. But do you outline your whole series, or do you do kind of like novel by novel?
So far, it's novel by novel. I do have, like I said, A Killer Secret was my first book, and I left the ending. That story ends, but it leaves it open for others. And I've thought about, I have maybe 5 other stories that can go in there, but all I have is maybe like a sentence for each one, like I did for the beginning. So if I get to that, then great. If I don't, I'm hoping nobody's mad.
No, I'm always also curious because you said you're an indie publisher, but you kind of attack this from like a business standpoint. Can you share kind of what that means for you?
Yeah, when I was thinking, kind of have like an entrepreneur spirit anyway, and I wanted this to be okay. This is a business. This is a small business. This is me trying to establish myself. There are great writers out there. There are great unknown indie writers out there that nobody finds because there are, hundreds of thousands of books published all the time. And so I wanted to make sure that I tackled this as a real business. I have a business plan. Not that I'm able to follow my, my 2, 5, 10-year plan, but at least, again, it kind of like my outlining, it gives me a direction to go in.
Can you break that down a little bit as far as like, I think people might be familiar with like a business plan, but how does that differ when you think of like an author business plan? Is it exactly the same? Is there anything that's different for you?
It's probably pretty similar. I as part of the plan, I look at, what are my competitors, and specifically, I'm a thriller author, and so, obviously when I first started, my competitors are all these big name authors, and that's not,
It was a crime too gruesome to describe on TV. An elderly woman murdered, tortured. Even when sentenced to death, the killer showed no remorse. But one lawyer tried to get this killer off, tried everything to escape justice. That lawyer? Senator Tim Kaine. When Virginia's Democratic governor sided with the victim and put the killer to death, Kaine said, "Something personal in me will die too." Tim Kaine. He's just weak.
I'm Hung Cao, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message. Paid for by Hung Cao from Virginia.
Really the case. You're no matter what you write, your competitors are all the other books that are out there, particularly in for me, the thriller genre. So it's like, I also, in that plan, like what can I do that's not necessarily unique? Because I don't think with all the books out there that mine are going to be so unique that everyone would be like, oh, there's other authors, and then there's Jeff Berney. I wouldn't mind if they did.
Right.
It's like, what niche am I comfortable writing in that I think there is an opportunity? And so that's where I kind of dove into, okay, I want to do these dark, gritty thrillers, and that's kind of where I'll play. I looked at, as part of my business plan, there's kind of a marketing plan in there. I looked at budgeting, which is very fun as an indie. But yeah, just kind of, again, taking it like if I was starting a business that happened to be a publishing business, because that's kind of what I think about. I just happen to publish one author.
Right. I'm saying, like, as an indie, you're a publisher. Like, you.
Absolutely. Publisher, marketer, grunt.
Yeah, you're doing it all. Sometimes even the cover.
I have people for that because I am awful.
Know where your strengths and your weaknesses are.
And that's the other thing. I think, indies starting out think, oh my gosh, I got to do all of it. I don't know how to design a book or even edit it. And there's so many resources out there that I've found that it's almost overwhelming, the number of resources, and finding the right kind of cover designer for your genre, or finding someone who edits your particular kind of thing. Finding someone you can afford is the big problem, I think, in India.
Yes.
Where I'm at now, I would love to do audiobooks because I keep an eye on the publishing market in general, and audiobooks are just destroying it. That's where the industry is moving. I haven't been able to afford to make that leap yet. I have a mic, obviously. I have the software. I've tried to do it myself, but then I realized, hey, I'm not an audio engineer. And
that's the thing, right? Like, because I have a friend, she just did that, and Goza Robinson, shout out to her. She just recorded and published her own audiobook, Cinnamon. And like she recorded it, but then there's like the audio part of mixing it, and then when you upload it to some of these different platforms, they have their own standards and different formats, so like you can really get into the weeds there. And like when she went through the process, I'm like, yeah, like I just pay someone to do that.
I know, but then you're looking at thousands of dollars. It's like the most expensive thing. I am willing to pay for my business, right? I pay someone to do my covers. I pay someone to edit. I just can't yet afford audio, and I've looked at like profit sharing and things like that. And I don't know. It's kind of, for me, it's like that next step of
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about you. You have a marketing background. How has that helped you in this process?
I'd like to think it's helped me. I'm not sure. I've been in advertising as a writer and a creative director for, oh my gosh, over 25 years.
Wow.
So at least I'm not, I think what has helped me is I'm not afraid to try things when it comes to marketing. I certainly had to learn some of the nuances of social media. I'm on Instagram, and I've been on Instagram, just posting pictures of my kids and stuff, but learning how to use it as a marketing platform has been interesting. I just started TikTok. I'm the kind of person who likes to start something when the government's trying to shut it down. So see how that goes. But I also, I think what my background taught me was that you need to not try everything at once, right?
Yeah.
Focus on one or two things at a time. And I decided I didn't like Facebook, so I didn't want to do it. And again, that's an arbitrary thing. So I thought, okay, I'll try Instagram. And so I spent the first couple of years of my author career working up my Instagram audience. And then I feel like, okay, I've got a good handle on that. And then, this year I've added TikTok again, great timing. But I'm just trying one thing at a time. and trying to maybe not necessarily master it, but at least feel like I've got an idea of what I need to do and, the cadence and the messages that people
Absolutely.
will interact with.
Absolutely. And I think that's like a really good way to have like a sustainable career so you don't get burnt out. Like a lot of times you'll see people like they'll post a lot and they'll go really hard and then you don't hear from them. Burnout is a real thing because you're doing a lot of it on your own. I think even when you have like a publisher now, like you're still doing a lot independently. So like I like that idea of just one thing at a time, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah. And I've just started dabbling in paid ads, specifically on Amazon. And I did that on purpose. I figured, okay, if I have one book out, I can do some paid ads and maybe I'll get some people reading it, but then there's nowhere for them to go next, right? So I waited until I had a second book. I'm still like dabbling in that, and I figure, okay, for my third book, that'll be a little easier, I think, to feel like it's a good investment.
Absolutely. At least that's what I've seen from people. Like, I think a lot of people go real hard on that first one, but like you mentioned, like, then it's like, well, okay, where do I go from here? And, as readers, right, we want like, okay, I want the next thing.
Yeah,
so
like,
I think, right? Absolutely. Yeah. So the more of a backlist you have, I think it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And I'm a slow writer. I mean, it takes me a couple years.
Same.
Yeah. I know there are people who can write a novel in a couple months and it's good. And those people, I wish I had their brain or their time or whatever. But, my life is my life. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to do a novel every couple of years, and that works for me. But I also have to be realistic of part of my marketing is I got to stay top of mind, but not people's faces when, like you said, they're looking for what's your next book, and I don't have it yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great pieces of advice. Jeff, like, where can people connect with you? Where can they find your books?
You can find my books. I am a wide author, so I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Kobo, Apple Books. But it's probably easiest if you go to jeffberney.com. You can link out to all those places. You can buy books directly from me now. I just started that too.
Lovely.
Yeah. So like I said, I try everything. And if it doesn't work, I figure, hey, at least I've tried it. Absolutely.
I got to have you come back and talk about being exclusive versus wide and what that journey has been like for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jeff, any last words for those that are trying to navigate this indie author space? I'll keep it broad like that. Any last words for them?
Yeah, it seems very big, particularly when you're beginning, but just start. Whether you are a pantser or you need to start an outline, just start. For me in the beginning, 90,000, 100,000 words seemed like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get there. But that's why it helped me to break it down into scenes and chapters. And you're just writing a piece at a time. And then you put those pieces together, and that's your big story. So know that everybody's in the same boat, and everybody has felt how you feel.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And even like just great words of wisdom about like, it doesn't matter whether you're an outline or a pantser. Try everything until you find your process, because I feel like I wasted so much time trying to do someone else's process. And then when I found out what works for me, I was like, oh, wow, this is how this journey is supposed to feel.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to write a novel, and there's not a right way.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Jeff. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I got to have you back on.
You too. Thank you. I would love it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.